So when you talk about the cloud, there's actually, for most people, it's three aspects to the cloud. There's also a fourth component called DaaS. That's data as a service. I had touched on this in my previous yatra, so I'll continue to do so here. But let's go from the bottom. Infrastructure as a service. It's primarily bare metal or virtual machines, compute with processors, memory, disk space that people can subscribe to. Right? You all know this. Now, when everyone says Oracle has missed out on the cloud, other vendors are going ahead of Oracle, people are primarily talking about that part of the cloud, which to me, like in the past, is a commodity. You had the race between HP and IBM and Dell to become the leader in selling the most computers. That's what they're talking about. But as you get to more richer services where there's more value add, I truly believe Oracle has a lead, especially in software as a service. We'll come to that. Platform as a service is if you install some software on top of the hardware, you bundle that together and you are able to offer that as a service. People can pay a monthly fee. A classic example is installing database on top of the machine or some Java container on top. That becomes platform as a service. Now, if you go to the Oracle website, the two have since been combined and they're collectively referred to now as Gen 2 infrastructure. So we'll talk about that momentarily. But as I said earlier, software as a service, which is applications built in the cloud and various types of applications. We'll talk about the different types that Oracle has. I believe Oracle is definitely the leader there. And the last component I touched on, data as a service, is Oracle has collected or acquired some technologies and information that companies around the globe want to do market analysis, competitive analysis. They offer them this data as a service. Though not popular, it's out there. So these are the four types of services in the cloud that Oracle offers to its customers. As I said, in the past, we used to have three different options on the Oracle website. So this is a page you'd get to if you go to oracle.com or cloud.oracle.com will take you here. Cloud applications, software as a service has remained the same, but infrastructure and platform are combined together into Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. It's the opinion of analysts that this infrastructure that was built from the ground up, Oracle re-architected the whole cloud infrastructure. In fact, many of the clients are being migrated from what used to be called OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Classic, to the Gen 2. Gen 2 is being lauded as the most advanced, the best architected infrastructure in the world. So there, I truly believe Oracle has acquired an edge, though not the market share yet. When it comes to Oracle applications, you may have seen recently Gartner placed Oracle's ERP applications in the leaders quadrant. It's the first time and ahead of everybody else. So there, I feel Oracle has an edge. This is the best part, and I'm going to touch on this at various points in my presentation. You can get to try these out for free. And this is something we as ACE directors had been asking Oracle for a long time, and we're very happy when the announcement was made several years ago that Oracle is going to offer anyone who wants to sign up free access to these cloud services. I had the opportunity and was blessed to be invited to test drive and beta test some of these services. You have the opportunity today to pretty much try out any of the cloud infrastructure services as part of the free tier. So do make use of this opportunity after you understand from me today which are the areas you need to focus on. And I'll give you some tips as to how to best use the 30 days that you have. It's a limited time, so you have to be very careful in using that free tier. So let's talk about software as a service. Oracle built from the ground up a best-in-class set of applications. Applications are primarily what businesses use to run their operations. So it could be the accounting team using the ERP or enterprise resource planning application, the financials application. It could be the manufacturing team using the supply chain application. It could be the HR department using core human resources, benefits, absence management, those kind of applications. The sales team using the marketing module that was from an acquisition from Eloqua, as well as using the CRM applications to track the customers and so forth. So there is a whole suite of applications. In the past, before Oracle built these applications, which are called either Fusion applications or cloud applications, there used to be other applications which some of you may be familiar with. eBusiness Suite, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, Siebel. eBusiness Suite was Oracle's own, but when Oracle acquired PeopleSoft, they had already purchased JD Edwards. Those were two different ERPs that were prevalent in the market. Those got acquired, and then Oracle also purchased Siebel. And then about 8 years or so, 8 or 9 years ago, they started looking at all these applications and tried to create a brand new set. This was built from the ground up, architected and developed for the cloud. And they took the best of all these other applications and combined them together into these world-class applications. So you could see it's a fusion of all these different technologies, applications, picking the best. They have 25, 30 years of experience building these apps. So that was leveraged. And then they invited individuals from all over the world, about 103 of us, if I remember correctly, to come in to validate, provide feedback, give requirements, beta test, become early adopters, and then the cloud applications will launch. So when you go for SaaS, software as a service from Oracle, we are talking about these applications that customers can acquire and use, and perhaps some of your clients, you yourselves, may be using these applications or managing them for your clients. So that's software as a service. Now, in terms of platform as a service, as I said, it's a combination of infrastructure and some software sitting on top. So this, again, there's various aspects to it. And in this Groundbreakers tour, you must have attended sessions that pertain to all these different types of platform services, data management, the Oracle Autonomous Database, application development. We'll talk about some of these integration platform, analytics platform, autonomous analytics, security, and so forth. So there's different software which used to be available where customers used to install them on-premise on their machines in the data centers or in their offices. But now these are available in the cloud. So when we talk about the cloud, and it's important for you to understand, there's two key aspects why the cloud is better. One, the speed with which you can get access to these services. In the past, you had to place the order with the hardware manufacturer, get the machine, install the operating system, install the software, test it out, and then make it available. Typically, it could take 2 to 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the lead times for all these things to get completed. Now, with the click of a button, within an hour, you can get access to the services. So that's a huge advantage you have with the cloud-based services. You obviously know that, but just in case. There's another very important aspect. I'd say two others. The second aspect is the scalability. If you want to today use a few CPUs and tomorrow there's a peak and you want to use 6 CPUs, again, it's a click of a button. You don't need to place the order for additional hardware and do the installs. But to me, the most important aspect of the cloud that really benefits the users, the customers, is the affordability. Before, you had to invest in the hardware, which is a huge cost. You had to invest in the applications you purchased upfront, and then you paid a maintenance fee every year, 20+% every year. You had to pay for maintenance of those apps, and they were not affordable. Smaller companies could not afford the applications. So with the cloud, you had to pay a monthly fee each month. So it's like the difference between buying a car or leasing a car, right? So the affordability has significantly helped a lot of businesses, and we're seeing a much wider cloud adoption. And that's where you have the advantage of leveraging some of these platform services or some of the software as a service. So why customers are using PaaS? Oracle takes care of all these things you see on the right: the installation, the configuration, the patching, the backup, restore, failover, everything, right? And I was a DBA once, and when I look at this, I'm like, wow, they're taking away my job. But the reality is far from that, and I'll tell you why. I have a couple of slides we'll talk about why that's not really true. But to me, if Oracle is doing all this, that means if I'm a DBA, I get back my weekends, I get back my nights. Typically, a DBA starts work when everybody stops working, right? In the evenings, when you want to apply a patch, you have to wait till everybody's logged off, and you're sitting that night going through the patch, and God help us if the patch fails or breaks. Same with upgrades. You're working over the weekend to upgrade and so forth. So honestly, I feel PaaS is helping DBAs get back to their lifestyle, giving back to the time so they can spend with family and friends. They don't need to work through the night, through weekends. Oracle is taking away the mundane jobs, which are time consuming and are typically done after hours. And that's why I see this as a benefit. And I'll talk about what should the DBAs be doing if this is all being done by Oracle. And that's the gist of this presentation. And not just for the DBAs, there's also sections of this presentation and slides. We will talk about others who are not necessarily DBAs, but who are in the industry. What can you do? What should you do to become more relevant in the cloud, to take advantage of this new technology and this new services that are available from Oracle? And this is last, the infrastructure as a service. I mentioned this before. You have network, compute, storage, available. So you don't necessarily need to buy machines. We're seeing a lot of our clients who used to purchase machines, used to have servers in the data center, move away from that. Here again, when you go with this, the elasticity, meaning you're able to scale and increase your machines to 24 machines over a weekend and bring them back to one machine after the weekend is over, is what is really helping the clients. One other thing you'd see where people are concerned about the cloud is the security. I tell you that I feel, especially with Oracle, your data is more secure than any one of you individually can secure it in your respective organization. The 7 layers of security between physical and logical security, that the layers that Oracle has established, has been proven. The certifications that they got to confirm that indeed your data is secure. So even there, it's not necessarily a concern. So enough about cloud and the overview. You can, if you have questions, please post them in chat. I appreciate if you could post your questions in English. If not, I'll request our host to translate them so I can answer them. But keep your questions going, and I shouldn't say chat, I should say there's a Q&A portion, so start posting questions there. So as I finish this presentation, I've set aside some time at the end to answer your questions. Thank you. So after you have seen the overview of cloud, we're talking about software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. Data as a service, not as much, not many of us use it, but it's out there. But in these three, our goal as part of this presentation and after is for you to acquire one or more of those skills, so you become more relevant in the cloud, and more importantly, there's a demand for your skills in the industry. So before we get into the cloud-based skills, let me just share, and this is something I have evolved. Every city I went to and presented this, I added what I heard from the audience. And my apologies if what you do is not here, but there is relevance to it. And please message me so that I can add it for my next presentation. But typically, when you look at it, you have these kind of skill sets in IT. Of course, I don't mean to leave out the managers, the project managers, and folks who are overseeing these teams, the team leads. What I'm sharing with you is also relevant. It's important that you know what your teams are currently doing and how to upgrade their skills. So obviously, we talked about the database administrator. There are system administrators who are responsible for the operating system level, installs, upgrade, maintenance. The applications administrators who work primarily within the applications. There are functional consultants who are helping with the setup, the configuration, the training of the applications. There's technical team members, and I broke them down in terms of forms developers, people who build pages where you're querying or entering information, reports developers who write reports that are extracting data from the database and presenting it to different users. We also need, as part of the implementations, conversion experts who know how to take data from older systems and bring them into the new Fusion applications. And lastly, integration experts who know how to connect different systems together. Again, um, this is broadly speaking the nature of the job. And again, if I missed you, the particular task that you do, please message me and I'll be sure to add it for the next one. Or you can ask a question if I missed any one of you here. What I'm going to do next is go through each one of these and tell you, if you're this, what should you be learning? How can you transform yourself so your job is protected and you're still relevant? So let's get started. How to upgrade your skills first. So database administrators, DBAs as they call, will continue to be DBAs. In fact, they can choose two different paths. If you're a database administrator and Oracle seemingly took away all the tasks you typically do, you can transform yourselves into what's called a database architect. Now, how is that relevant, right? So one thing to note, which is very important, is that Oracle stops after installation of the database instance. They do not go and peek inside the instance. That's a very important distinction. Again, I'll repeat that. Oracle does not look at client's data. They're contractually obligated or prevented from not looking at your internal data, be it invoices, list of customers. Oracle does not see that. So you as a DBA are still responsible for what's within that data. But from an architecture standpoint, what I'm talking about here is you have so many different services. You go to the page where they list all the services, you'd see tens of services out there. And not many people understand, one, they don't understand what each service is. Two, they don't understand how they work together. And this is a question I pose to my attendees when I'm on the Groundbreaker tour. You have the Oracle Database Cloud Service. Do you know it has to have one other service, very important service, that has to go hand in hand with the database cloud service? And the answer is you need the backup service. I mean, when you're a DBA, you're writing the scripts or you have some third-party application that's able to back up everything and store it, even offline storage, or you're doing, using the logs, you're pushing that to a standby data source and so forth. You handle that. But in the case of Oracle, when you just buy the database cloud service, typically it does not come with the backup service. So that's an additional line item you need to add to the database cloud service to make sure your data is backed up. Just a simple example, right? Like this, you have so many services that you'll need to combine and connect together to make sure the company's business needs are addressed. And that'll be you. You already know the database. It'll be, you understand the underlying architecture, but then you need to understand how the cloud service is architected. And then you need to understand what the peripheral services are. What are the other services that go with the database cloud service and how your company can benefit? Here's another new service. Here are some leading edge services like blockchain service or digital assistant. How can your business combine them and start working together? You are looking for opportunities within your organization to uptake new services that could potentially help automate areas that have never been automated before. Most likely because they're too expensive. And now with the cloud services being more affordable, you're able to achieve that. So that's database architecture. That's what I mean by database architect. As you can see, it'd still be a DBA, but this time the A stands for architecture. Also, you've seen and perhaps attended these sessions last week, or you may attend them this week. The speakers talking about the autonomous database, self-correcting, and see how that operates and how you can leverage that for your organization. You could get into machine learning and how to improve how your systems behave. So these are all areas that you can acquire skills in and become more relevant to your organization. There's another path also you can choose. From what I've seen, I was a DBA myself, as I said, and I touched on both these. Some DBAs work at the instance level. They're dealing with large databases and architecting them, they're improving the performance and so on. There's another group of DBAs who go beyond that too. They get into the DB. They create tables for the team, they performance tune them, they create indexes. And so they're working more closely with the developers. Regardless of what type of DB you are, you have this path here to become a database architect. Oh, this is something I pulled up from Ask Tom's site. So there's a discussion around database architect. It's not a role that I conjured. It's something that Oracle themselves has been talking about. So you could Google, find this particular architect and understand how Ask Tom team feels about database architecture. So coming to the other type is the database analyst. Remember I told you about DBAs who work closely with the developers, with the report writers. The analyst actually dives deeper into the database. They understand the internals of the database. And these folks are particularly relevant because of what I said before. Oracle cannot go look inside your database. Anything to do within the instance, they depend on you. So be it creating tables or fine-tuning them, Oracle would not do that. Even though your company purchased database cloud service, Oracle would not necessarily do that. So that's where your services are still relevant. There's also this autonomous analytics that's available. You can learn how that works, where you could push data into an autonomous data store, data warehouse, and then help creation of charts and graphs and all that for your business. That's purely if you're not using cloud applications. But if your company is indeed using cloud applications, then there's a high demand for personnel who are able to understand the underlying schema. I just pulled up this so you could understand what I mean. When companies purchase financials applications, there's a whole bunch of tables that are within those applications. And these tables, there are hundreds of them, thousands of them actually. So if someone wants to report on invoices from payables, they need to understand this table. So there's a learning curve where you need to completely understand how Oracle designs these applications and what are the different tables, what are the modules. Guess what? Once you acquire these skills, once you become an expert, even with some of the modules, you've gained an understanding of all the tables and the views that are available, you are in demand. There's a lot of organizations who really want someone who understands the underlying schema within the Oracle Cloud applications. And that's what I mean by, this autonomous analytics, cloud application schema where you are able to completely go into the cloud application schema, understand all the tables and the views, and you're able to help developers or business users extract information. That's a high demand area, and I encourage you to start looking into that. And you can just Google Oracle Fusion tables, and you'll see different modules, and you can start to understand the underlying schema. By the way, I have a follow-up paper. Hopefully I come back and present for you the next event. It's about technical training where I go deeper into telling you how you can go look at the tables, how you can extract them, because you can't connect to the database, and there's a way in which you can connect through a browser and get the information out. Also, a new thing that just happened is called Oracle Analytics for Applications. For those applications users, Oracle has built pre-built analytics. So there's a need or a demand for team members who understand how this is done and who are able to help the customers implement Oracle Analytics for Applications. So all these are areas that you as a database analyst can help clients with. So don't be afraid that PaaS is going to take away your job. Either you can become a database architect or a database analyst. Now, I listed this for those folks who were in the system administration realm, right? So when you go to the cloud, again, some of the job that typically a system administrator would do in terms of installs and patching have now been taken over. When I say patching, operating system level patching, that's all done by Oracle. So what would you do? You would become what's called a cloud administrator. You would understand all the cloud services that are out there or that you have purchased. In some situations, Oracle would send a notification, ask you to assist with the upgrade process. So it's important that you understand how the cloud services are upgraded and coordinate with Oracle to do that, Oracle support to do that. You actually would be responsible for provisioning. If you're not buying an autonomous service, you still are responsible for clicking the button, providing some pieces of info, and then provisioning that instance. What I mean by provisioning is if you want to start a compute instance, you will have to say, how big is that machine, what kind of memory you want, what kind of CPU you want, and then click the button. So there's still a need for someone on the client side, someone from your standpoint, to actually go start things off. Even though Oracle would do all the installation and everything, there's still a need for a cloud administrator. Cloud administrators are also very important to constantly monitor the notifications that come from Oracle. Oracle will tell you something went down, but it'll be your job to bring the system, once Oracle brings it back up, to make sure that everything from a business standpoint is brought back to the same state. Security is also very important. So understanding the security of these services, understanding and helping your customers with security would also fall under cloud administrator's role. So as you can see, even though things are happening in the cloud, there is a need for system administrators. The new title would be you are a cloud administrator. So I encourage you to upgrade your skills and become cloud administrators. So as you can see, there's a certification process too, so you could get certified. Many of these roles that I'm talking about do have a certification process. You've seen on LinkedIn and other places where team members are already achieving this certification. They're posting the badges with pride. Kudos to them, and I'm sure it's a matter of time before you also have certification in these areas. Now, the role of applications admin has transformed into Fusion Applications Administrator. Again, there you need to pick up certain very specific skills that pertain to applications from Oracle, right? So if you're an e-business suite applications administrator or PeopleSoft applications administrator, you will have to learn how systems are administered within Fusion. So typically, applications administrators are responsible for granting access to users, revoking access if they leave, managing the bad jobs that are running, and so forth. So the equivalent of doing that would be learning what's called how to use the security console within Fusion applications. And how do you go in there and create new users? How do you grant them access? How do you remove access from the users? So there's two levels. You grant them a role, and then you have to go in and grant that role data access, meaning even though you have a particular role, do you have access to all countries or just one country's data, and so on. So that's the data access. And then finally, how scheduled processes work within Fusion applications, learning that and administering that would be your new role. So applications administrators would become Fusion apps administrators. And here's the guided path to pursue that and get certified in that area. From an implementation standpoint, there's a slight shift, and it's a shift for good. What's happening with the cloud is implementations are getting speeded up, much quicker, much faster approach, and Oracle has provided some amazing tools to help you with that. So what do implementation consultants or functional consultants do? What did they do in the yesterday is what probably they're doing today with some of the legacy applications like eBusiness Suite, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards. They go understand the requirements. They understand the systems really well. They tweak them, they configure them, they turn on switch, turn off switches, and then they train the users, and then they migrate all those setups to production, and you go live with the application. That's the typical role. In this case, the application implementation consultants need to understand the approach. Oracle has a built-in, think of it as a project plan where each task you can click and it actually takes you to the page where you go set up. It's called the functional setup manager. So implementation specialists need to understand this functional setup manager, need to understand in what order the modules need to be implemented, and then need to understand where and what changes or setup configurations need to be made. Now, I told you Oracle has speeded up this process. there are two things that increase the speed with which you can complete implementations. For certain modules, Oracle has created what are called rapid implementation templates. Rapid implementation templates for financials, for assets, for cash management, and so on. You have to learn how to use them. It exponentially speeds up how quickly you can implement applications. On top of that, for every module, they have the ability to export the setups and import them, especially when you're migrating from test or non-production environments to production. You can use the export import capability. This also helps you compare setups between test or non-production to production environments. So you need to learn all this, how it's done. And also implementation consultants after the implementation can get into a support role where they understand the modules, they know what they set up, and if there's an issue, they know how to troubleshoot and fix it. That's also a skill that's highly in high demand. So these are things you need to acquire to migrate from, if you're a functional consultant, you've been working with some of the applications unlimited, as Oracle calls them. If you want to migrate to Fusion applications, these are some of the skills you need to learn. And here's the guided path to become a certified implementation specialist. And then we have technical team members. Gone are the forms, be it the people tools or the tools used in JD Edwards, forms developer from eBusiness Suite. You need to acquire Java skills if you want to be relevant. Well, there's one exception to the rule. I'll come to that. There's three paths for you primarily. If you're a developer forms, you either learn the application developer framework, ADF. You can understand Oracle's usability patterns, UX, and there are also rapid development kits that Oracle has provided in the past. So you acquire all these skills, you become relevant. You're able to build forms that look just like how Oracle built. You're able to go in and personalize or customize the forms because you have access to the underlying framework and you can make slight changes like changing a label or hiding a field and so on. The other approach, which is more popular, is to learn JavaScript. And you're using a different framework, Java Extensible framework. This is another approach you can adopt instead of learning ADF, which was prevalent in the past. Nowadays, this is more of a strategic direction Oracle has taken. You're better off learning Jet, become a Jet developer. Now, in both these cases, you need to know how to code. You're doing some code writing. But there's a newer transformation that's possible where you don't necessarily need to code. It's all visual. You drag and drop and create these forms and pages. So you could become a VBCS developer, which is Visual Builder Cloud Service. With this, you can either build web-based apps or mobile apps that talk to applications, Oracle's own or any other third-party application. They can pull data from any application using REST services and also push data into these applications using REST services. So if you don't like coding, this is the way to go. Pick up the VBCS skills and you will be relevant. Next, we talk about report developers. You would essentially become cloud report developers. Some of you have already been using XML Publisher or BI Publisher, OBIEE. So those are all very relevant skills. Even in Fusion, you still use them. You could either build analytics or dashboards. You can build reports. There's some other tools from a finance standpoint that you can use. It's called the Financial Reporting Studio or SmartView. Also, some developers, there's a demand for this because these are little metrics that show up on various dashboards. It could say you have 500 million in revenue this year, just a little widget that expands and shows the monthly revenue and so on. They're called infolets that have the capability to show summarized information, cards that flip over, cards that expand, and so forth. There's a technique to learn the skill. And not many infolet developers out there. So this is a call to action for some of you to acquire that skills and become an Oracle Cloud Reports developer. Workflows gone. Those of you who may have known eBusiness Suite Workflow Designer, instead what's used is the BPM, Business Process Modeling. That's a skill you need to acquire if you want to build workflows. Approval rules are definitions are possible within the application framework itself. So these are skills you need to acquire if you want to help customers establish workflows within the applications or extend the workflows within the application. Indeed, there's a demand for conversion specialists, people who understand. In fact, there's a good transformation for those of you who really know eBusiness Suite or PeopleSoft or JD really well. You know those tables. You just need to learn the new tables, and you're able to new techniques to load the data in. So these are the set of skills you need to acquire. Understanding of the staging tables, the base tables, what processes you need to run to convert the data, and how to pull the data out of your existing systems and push them up into the cloud, and how do you load them, the different tools available. I've listed them here. And lastly, from an integration standpoint, you have the Oracle Integration Cloud. That's strategically the product that Oracle is focusing on. They're building a lot of pre-built interfaces with them. Autonomous integration was introduced. It self-manages itself. So you need to learn the integration process development. You need to understand how which web services are available. In the past, it was SOAP-based services. Nowadays, it's becoming a lot of REST-based services that are becoming popular. And then the FBDI process stands for File-Based Data Interface Integrator. You have these processes that can be used to invoke such file-based data integration. And then indeed the SOA cloud service, as well as B2B integration. All these are popular. There's still a lot of demand for this. So if this is your interest, please go and pursue this one. Some of the images I used in this presentation are from Oracle. I just touched on a few aspects of how you can upgrade your skills. As I said, I have a follow-up presentation where I do a deeper dive, but given the time, that's all I could share. I hope it was useful. I hope it encourages you to go and start picking up these skills. As was said earlier, you have the free tier that's available. And as I mentioned, what you need to do is plan out before you sign up. Don't just go sign up for the services, because time is limited and you will end up wasting the free 300 hours that are given to you. What you should do is you need to first go browse the web page, actually go to cloud.oracle.com and figure out what you want to learn. Do you want which aspect of the infrastructure, which products you want to learn, and watch the videos, learn everything, and then sign up before you go and acquire or sign up for these services. So here are all the services. This is a free tier link. All these services are available. Please plan, because you want to maximize the use, the 30 days that you get, the $300. You want to make sure you make best use of it. So actually watch the videos, learn beforehand, pick up some hands-on labs or tutorials that are available there. And then when you sign up, you can continuously actually do practical exercises with them and upgrade your skills, rather than just because I told you today, don't sign up. Spend some time planning it out. That's my advice to you. That was my presentation. With that, let me stop and see if you had any questions. Thank you.
Hey, Basheer, there is a question.
Sure.
And it says that if it is possible to share the PowerPoint over email. I don't know if
I can make an exception, but I think you have a place where everyone can go and download this presentation. Do you want to mention that?
Yes, the presentation.
Probably better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not the PowerPoint itself, but all recordings are going to be available through our YouTube channel. So that's one alternative if people want.
Okay. And indeed, if you want thank you for that. If you want the PowerPoint, please, my email is here, as well as my Twitter handle. Either way, direct message me on Twitter or send me an email. I'll be happy to send you a copy of this slide deck. Not a problem.
Okay. So I think there are no more questions, or at least not in the Q&A section here in Zoom. I don't see any other comment in the chat. So we really thank your participation, Basheer. Also, we thank the people who joined the session today. We really appreciate your support and help for making this event happen. And remember that we are running this event also this week. We just finished the event until August 28th, which is this Friday. Actually, on Friday, we have 3 hands-on labs. So if you want to check which type of hands-on labs we have, go to laouc.org and you can check the entire agenda. So we really appreciate your support, Basheer, again. And there is another question here, Basheer.
Yeah, I do see it. Oh, perfect. Okay. No, first of all, thank you. I appreciate it. My pleasure to be part of this. I'm looking forward to doing this every year with the LAOUC and hopefully meet some of you in person in the coming years. The question is, any further information about Infolets? Do we have any Oracle docs? Absolutely. I found the best way to find information is simply go on Google, but always say Oracle Fusion as the 2 keywords in front. So you end up with the right, let me show you. You always put the words Oracle Fusion and then whatever you're looking for. And then you hit enter. There you see about Infolets, how to create an Infolet, lots of videos. YouTube is very rich in terms of information on how to do things. Don't underestimate it. Incredible amount of information, both on Google as well as on YouTube. Just like you heard, some of these recordings are also going to be on YouTube. So this will tell you create the Infolets that I keep talking about. See, they're smaller, and then you can expand them and make them larger. And here, Oracle provides a lot of built Infolets. Here, it's talking about how you go and edit small videos, 5 to 10 minutes long, very easy for you to learn, and then you can go try them out. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Basheer. Y gracias a todos los que se conectaron de habla hispana. Les agradecemos su participación también en el evento. Recuerden que estamos en el track de Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. La siguiente sesión va a ser de Terraform y Oracle Cloud. Eso puede ser interesante para la gente que está acá. Remember that we have a next session, which is about Terraform and Oracle Cloud, which is a pretty good topic, I think. So don't miss it. It's going to be starting in the next 10 minutes. So thank you. Gracias una vez más a todos los que pudieron atender. Estos son las sesiones de Groundbreakers Tour Latinoamérica. Gracias. Thank you, Basheer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you all.
See you next time.
Have a good one. Likewise.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.